Welcome to the Greenleaf podcast. Today we're doing some drive-bys. We get a lot of questions on how we look at deals and how we underwrite them. And one of the things we always do is we go drive the deal. So we look at a lot of different deals every week, every day, and we're always out on the road trying to see what they look like and how they're working. So today we've got a couple we're gonna go by first. The first one, which is a vacant retail complex, is Jalisco. How do you say it?
Let's go with Conoceria Tienda.
No, I don't think that's
the rest of it.
It's Jalisco number 4. So
Taqueria Jalisco Market number 4.
Okay, so the first one we're gonna look at is a taco place in northern Atlanta. It's a vacant retail deal. And when we look at this kind of stuff, we're seeing what does the price point look like? What could it be used for? And there's always the guess of what used to be there before it became this location or vacant.
I'm going with Chili's on this one. Okay, and so just based on the exterior lights.
It's a little run down. I mean, we're in a
renovated shopping center.
Fairly renovated, not really renovated.
The white paint renovated.
All right. So we're looking around. We're always going for what is the parking lot condition? What's the exterior building condition? Really looking for just big problems to start with.
Yeah, it looks like we use a fresh seal coat on this one. So it's a separate parcel. It's an out parcel. Just the building on its own is about 2 acres. Probably has what, 40 to 60 parking spots. And it's definitely not being maintained. Watch the big hole ahead.
Got some pothole action. This one has like a little tree growing out of it almost. It actually looks like there's some people here and the doors are open.
Just airing it out. Good road frontage, lots of traffic count. Nice patio.
All right, so this thing is 6,000 square feet, which doesn't look like that's accurate. First guess, I have to go measure that, make sure that looks right. It's pretty easy to just measure stuff on Google Maps and take out the ruler and see how big a building is. This one, it says 6,000 square feet. It doesn't look like it's 6,000 square feet. Really the value here, most of these retail deals, is what kind of tenant can be put in there. I don't know why they have rapid charge propane tanks out front of it. Seems a little weird.
So, you know, like a handful of the expanding brands that we've talked to, like a Jim and X, they would take a space like this and retrofit it, and that's normally going to run somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million to fix it back up, plus the deferred repairs.
Oh, there's some kind of just marketing.
Oh, it's
there,
a full grocery store inside.
It's listed as vacant, but it's clearly not vacant. There's a lot in there. Always one of the exciting things, see if we can just go walk in and see what it looks like. So, you want to give it a let's go try it out. See the restaurant.
Needs a lot of money.
Well, everything needs a lot of money. It's like, is it a good investment? Sorry, they want $2 million for this right now, so that's $333 a square foot if it's 6,000 square feet. So it's probably a little bit more, but our per square foot base, if we get an actual retail, tenant in there, that's good. It's gonna be more than that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely some room to create value there with the right tenant. It could pretty easily be rebranded. I mean, it's a brick building, so it's not like it's an aluminum crappy building. The windows are fairly older and they're kind of restrictive. The windows don't allow a lot of light in, so you'd probably have to raise up the windows. If you got rid of the awnings and just put windows the whole way up, it'd be pretty nice open front. Yeah. I think this is kind of deal you got to do if you have a tenant in hand and you can build them a location.
Yep.
And that would make sense.
It's good bones. It just needs a refresh.
But I think that refresh has got to come with the tenant first, especially in the market now.
Oh yeah.
So.
But great traffic count right in a shopping center that's pretty well occupied. So.
Okay. Well, this one seems like we'll probably keep it in mind if we got a tenant that wants to use it that's how this deal will get done. There's probably some value there to be had, but just taking it for what it is. It's listed as vacant. There's sort of a business in there right now. That's probably not gonna do it as is. So, all right, let's go find another one. We're gonna drive a little bit down the street. Everything's pretty close here, so let's go take a look. So the next place we're going, we just found on LoopNet, and it was listed as vacant office, so that's always an exciting one for us that we can go see what opportunities are there. It's listed as 19,000 square feet, and they want $2 million for it. So roughly the same price point as the last two we just looked at, but 19,000 square feet for $2 million, so we're $105 a square foot, $100 a square foot. So we'll see what this one looks like.
Single story, built in 1988. Has 60 parking spots, so that's pretty good for the square footage. 3.3 per 1,000. It's on 1.7 acres.
Backing up here.
So they're marketing this as flex office. We'll have to go around the backside to actually see if it can be flexified or not. It does have the business in the front, though. We'll see where the party
Hopefully
is.
there's a party in the back. Hopefully it's a party in the back. It's a little, all right, so you got a couple suites up front.
Nope. No party.
It says deliveries.
Hand truck deliveries only. With overgrowth and trees.
Oh, we would love to see some potential for roll-up doors back there, and I mean, you can easily tell that on Google Maps if you're just looking at it. You say, okay, there's definitely not anything back there, no access, but it's still beneficial. Just go take a look.
The challenging part, this is that OI zoning, meaning that you really can't use warehouse space or
so OI is
storage. Office institutional, which is very restricted to really just be office.
Does one tenant's got the whole space?
Oh yeah. I guess they're all leaving. Because it does say vacant on the
so
listing.
It's probably owner occupied. They're leaving, and it's probably a hard lease right now, just doing individual office suites that have no ability to have warehouse with it.
The other part is that with the backside access to the second story, they're counting in the square footage, which is probably just basement useless space. So they're probably overcounting the square footage by at least a third.
They only want 100, but if they're overcounting by a third,
it's more like 130.
Yeah. All right.
Next.
Sometimes you get a feeling when you drive something, you're like, look, it's just not for us. It might be a good deal for someone, but not for us on this one. All right, the next one we're gonna go look at, it says,
oh, this is the majestic one.
Yeah. It says it's an impressive 4-star office building. Opportunity to acquire a majestic 5-story office building in Peachtree Corners. Well, let's go see what it looks like.
It was built in 1986, 103,000 square feet, has 380 parking spots, which is a 3.7 spaces per 1,000 ratio. They're asking $10 million, which is $97 a square foot. It's on 6.5 acres.
On the positive news, all 5 stories are above ground. We do not have a building that's built into the side of a hill or anything like that. Anytime you have those buildings built into the side of a hill or basement level access, we've always run into water issues in those types of assets. So it's positive to see they're all above ground.
Nice sign.
It's got a pretty nice little monument sign on the way in. It's 43% occupied is what the current listing says, and a lot of this office stuff, we have seen a lot of leasing demand if you're willing to pay for the TI, and the TI can get up there pretty expensive, but it's hard to tell that much just looking around an office building of what the interior condition is. That's really where most of the cost is going to be on a TI build out for one of these things, but the outside at least.
Yeah, the parking lot's in great
Majestic?
shape. The Majestic's a little bit of a stretch, but it's well maintained.
Trees are limbed up. You're not driving into anything. You want to just go take a look?
Let's go.
Let's go see what it looks like here. One of the best parts is just seeing if we can go inside and check it out. So we just got off the top floor elevator and it is wide open. So I took out all the bathrooms here. You can see the remaining toilet drains. So you just have one huge open floor plate. Also, there's no sprinkler system in the ceiling either, so that is definitely expensive on the TI build out. There's the pipe for the sprinkler system. All right. Well, we went all 5 floors, so we got a good look at what's going on with that thing. Bank owned is always interesting. The whole top floor is vacant.
You would never thought it. I mean, because the first floor was immaculate. It was really
First
nice.
floor looks fantastic.
Had turf on the backside with lots of picnic tables. So you would never thought that the top floor was
just totally vacant. But we got 5th floor and 3rd floor are totally vacant. 4th floor, there's some activity there. The 2nd floor has one tenant, but it's only a half floor on the 2nd floor.
Right.
1st and 2nd floors are only half floor because of the atrium. So it's really, how much did it cost to re-tenant 2 full floors? This thing, I mean, it's only $100 a square foot to start with.
Yeah, so if we're putting it around 150 on just those 2 floors.
Yeah. But it's 100,000 square feet.
Yep. On roughly, what, 50,000?
So you got...
It's about half the square footage.
Well, like, so 30, 30, 30. No, you got 20. You got like maybe 22,000 square feet on the top floor. So 2 floors, 22,000 square feet that you got to go spend $150 a square foot on. $6 million.
Oh, on the both of them, yeah.
Yeah, if you do both floors, you got to spend about $6 million probably to get that thing fully spec'd out to lease. It's quite expensive. I'm not sure why they took out all the sprinkler systems upstairs.
Yeah, or the bathrooms.
Yeah, they took out all the bathrooms.
You can renovate a bathroom pretty easily, but rebuilding a bathroom is a whole other story.
Yeah, because that's all going to need to be fully permitted to be redone, or at least bring it up to anything. It's going to make it challenging. But it is bank owned, so maybe there's something to talk with the bank, see what they're willing to do.
Yeah,
they're already
see how low they can go.
I think our steps on this one are talk to the bank, see what they're willing to do. But this one is going to need. Look at this one; it needs a lot of love. Physical improvement, operational improvement. It could use everything, but at the right price point, any deal can be a good deal if it's at the right price point. It's just got to get to that point. We have bought multi-story office before. We've also bought it for significantly less than this. We bought it for more than this too, but this one seems like it's a good asset at the price.
Definitely worth a look.
So, yeah. All right, we're gonna go see what the bank says. All right, so drove 3 deals now. Everything from a retail deal. We saw a single story, not going to be flex. But our hope was we look at those single story deals and we want to turn those into flex deals. That's not going to be the case on that one. And then we've got a 5-story office building, which is really, the market is pretty dead for any kind of office stuff. But it's kind of the time to be buying. So we're going to take a look, see what we can get through the bank on this one. And then we'll probably keep the retail one on the look. If we can find the right tenant, there could be something there, but that's got to be a tenant first opportunity.
Exactly.
So, cool. Okay. Let's jump into some other topics. We got more to talk about today. So we just drove a bunch of properties. I think that's one of the most fun things you can do in real estate is get out there and see what you're looking at. Benefits of real estate is literally everywhere you drive, everything is an opportunity, everything's a deal. No matter where you're going, any vacation, anything you're doing, there's always a deal out there. So it's always fun to drive by and look at stuff. So excited we got to go do that.
We only broke 17 or 18 traffic laws with the U-turns and the red lights and the yield signs.
Those are recommendations.
Yeah, exactly.
Recommendations. But going out and looking at stuff is always fun. So we want to just go through a little bit of looking at deals and now kind of the tools we use to analyze really what decision we're going to make. So we obviously have our opinions when we're on the fly looking at stuff, and then it comes back and it's like, let's look at some data to verify where we're at. One of those first things is really a software that came out about 3 years ago is when we started using it. It's known as placer.ai, and it's a fantastic tool that tracks foot traffic when you're going through different locations. So argument is really like, has that changed the underwriting or is it still changing it?
Well, to clarify foot traffic, it's not a guy with a clipper counting the people walking through the door.
No.
It's cell phone data that we buy.
So it's tracking cell phones, and they aggregate that information. So even if you just drive through the parking lot of something, it's going to count that you were there for a short time frame on that deal.
Right. So the first property when we looked at was the marketing package said a vacant retail center or a vacant retail store, looked like a vacant restaurant. We get there and it's actually an operating Mexican market.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we go inside, there's people inside. It's like, oh, well, we could have looked at Placer and saw that there's foot traffic going in and out of the door and would have told us a head count versus the marketing data, which was basically wrong, saying it was vacant.
Right, yeah, it wasn't vacant. But Placer, on the other hand, we're talking about that deal, that probably isn't the final use of that spot. That's probably not the highest and best use of that deal in the condition that it was in. So maybe you're going to do something else with it. But I mean, I would argue that Placer's kind of just expected. You're going to look at a deal, Placer is in all of our underwriting. It's just another assumption that goes into it. And we have a Placer license, so we're using it on our deals. But if you don't, all of the brokerage shops have it. And you just ask them, hey, send me the Placer report and compare it to any other deal. Even that tenant that was there has 3 other locations around Atlanta. So it's like, hey, compare it to those.
It was the number 4 team.
Yeah, it was. There's going to be 3 other ones where you just start really high. You start with like location 200. Like, wow. But no, they had 3 other ones listed. So we can compare that on Placer and just see what it looks like.
Yeah. So the nice thing about Placer is that when we're looking at or buying a retail center, whether it's an Applebee's or a Dollar General, we don't always get a clear indication of how well the store is performing. They're not going to get. A lot of times, they don't give us financials. They don't tell us how the sales are relative to the other ones in their region.
Yeah.
And Placer helps us see the foot traffic and measure how many people are walking in and out into this Dollar General compared to another Dollar General compared to the rest of the country. Same thing with Applebee's and all of our other locations. So it's very helpful for retail. I would take the position that retail is very, very valuable. If we're looking at a quasi-vacant office building that we're going to do a lot of value add to, it's not really as meaningful, especially for the cost of the license, because it's basically vacant. Like the other building we saw was 43% occupied. Like
the office building. The last building we went to, 43% occupied office building.
Right, and we're looking at saying, okay, we can't do anything at 43%. There's really no value to tell us how many people are going in and out of this building at 43%. It's more that if we can't get it to at least 80, 85%, there's no money to be made. So we have to bet that we're going to be able to do that.
Yeah. So you're saying like 43% is essentially 0%.
Anything really below 80 is 0, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, commercial, especially office, that value declines great. You get to 40%, it's like, man, you're in a tough spot on any of those deals. Yeah, so retail definitely important. I would say in retail it is just standard. It's part of the underwriting package. You're always going to be looking at it, and really everyone knows it's there, right? So, but maybe not so much on any kind of value add deal. It's like, maybe not.
But do you remember we were looking at some deals in Huntsville about 2-3 years ago when work from home was really prevalent, and they were all fully occupied. They had long-term leases, and we pulled up Placer, and there was 0 foot traffic in call it 80,000 square foot deal. And we looked at it and said, wow, it's great to have a long-term lease, but they're not going to be there for very long with no people going in and out of this building for years.
Right. Yeah, it is. I think it's very helpful when you look at that stuff, but I also think it is kind of baked into the process. Everyone should be using it. Everyone has it in that assessment. So I don't know if it's necessarily a competitive advantage looking at it. It just knows, hey, that example for Huntsville, like, look, no one's going to be there. You can have a better assumption of what's going to happen with that lease. They're probably not going to renew it. No one's coming to the office.
Right.
Yeah. But it's a gosh, you could spend hours just looking through Placer and comparing one location to another. I'm always fascinated with like, what's the best ranked anything? What's the best ranked McDonald's? What's the best ranked Zaxby's? Like, what is the best one of these stores? And just the foot traffic of the top stuff is off the charts compared to middle of the road.
My favorite part of Placer is looking at where people come from and go to. So what you can, so one of the things, like on the way to the office, where are people coming from? You'll see it's not going to tell you really their home or home address, but it will tell you if there's a Dunkin' Donuts down the street that they're stopping and getting a donut and coffee. Yeah,
like 6% of the people coming to this center stop at Dunkin' Donuts before they get there. It's super interesting.
Remember the place in Columbia that the most frequented place after work people went to was a bar down the street.
Yes.
It was like 6-7% of the entire office went to a bar down the street.
Yeah, and I would say too, if you've got an apartment community, it's like where are people going and coming from before they get there or after they leave? It's like that's where you can target your advertising. So there's a lot of ways you can deploy it into your operation to be successful with it.
Right. Yeah. So depending on whether you're buying a stabilized product that you're basically planning to improve, or if you're buying something completely vacant that you need to improve, it Placer has different weight on your underwriting.
Yeah. Good points. Yep. Okay. One of the other parts we look at is the biggest part of a building is who's the tenant. What's the lease look like? On the residential side, you obviously got 1-year leases. It's a little easier to underwrite, I would say. It's not easier, it's just different. When we look at the commercial space, we look at all of our leases. We created like 10-point scale. It's like everyone's got a scale of how they're going to do something, but 10 million points that we look at, one of our biggest ones is our build-out costs compared to the total value of the lease. So anytime we sign a lease, there's really 2 costs that have to happen. One is we are typically have to do something, whether that's just we've got to paint it and clean it and make sure things are functional. That's kind of whether there's going to be a tenant or not a tenant. If you want to lease it, you have to have that stuff done. Right? That's kind of like the base cost. We don't necessarily include that, or I would say we don't include that in our build-out costs, which is our TI allowance. And our TI allowance is how much money are we going to give a tenant to move in? And the other part is commissions. Right? So when we look at our total cost to lease a deal, we're taking what's the total revenue we're going to get from this deal, and how much of that do we have to pay out up front in either TI costs or improvement dollars that need to happen for a lease.
A good example on the commissions is in Atlanta, the leasing market, the brokers get paid 6%, some to the tenant side, some to the landlord side, plus 1 month's rent. So if you're signing a 1-year lease, your total commissions end up being north of 10% versus signing a 3-year lease versus signing a 5-year lease, because that 1 month additional add-on to the 6% is humongous on a short-term lease.
1 month of a year lease is 8%. 1 month of a 2-year lease is 4%. Right? So if you sign a 2-year lease, you already have your 6% seller side, owner side commissions, and you add a 4%. Your total cost of the deal is going to be 10%. Plus, you have to look at what you're going to spend in TI. So we have a deal right now that we're underwriting. It's a 5-year lease, and our TI improvements are going to cost us about 8.4% of that total lease. Right? So over a 5-year period, we're paying out 8.4% of that to the tenant for them to make improvements to the space to move in. Plus, we have our commission costs, and that's 6% of the total 5 years. So those two numbers, adding those together, 6% of the 5 years, and then we'll just call it 8.5% of the 5 years to make it easy. So that's going to be your total cost. 14.5% of the total lease is going to be paid out up front, and the remainder then is coming in over time.
Yeah, so on a 5-year lease, just under a year of those 5 years is going to be paid out on the front end without really any cash from the 5 years of the lease.
Right.
So it takes some time to recover.
Right. So we're looking at how can we make sure ideally, if we can keep our TI costs under 10%, that's what we're saying. Okay, this is a good structure for us. We like that position. However, there's plenty of deals where it's way over that. That's where we got 10 points. One wouldn't do it. So we've got other factors we look at, but that one is very costly on the front end of what those commissions, what those TIs are. Other parts we look at, we want to see what's it going to do to the weighted average lease term of the property. We want to know if there's personal guarantees or if there's business guarantees. Is it a credit tenant? It's a big difference if you sign a lease with a national medical provider or like the grocery store that we stopped by on our first deal. Vastly different tenants. So there's got to be some risk premium that's put on the lower quality or the non-credit tenant in that space.
Right. So a good example, one of our buildings in Raleigh, we just signed a lease with one of the autism centers, and they seem to be a startup, doesn't have a whole ton of credit, but then we looked at their holding company, and it's one of the biggest private equity firms in America. So, and we got both of them on the lease. So it actually adds a lot of value to that building versus just having a startup autism center in there.
Right. And on that one too, I mean, our TI dollars there are going to be significant. We're spending a lot of money on that build out. But then part of it too is they want a private bathroom in their medical section, and we only had group bathrooms. So it's like, okay, where does that cost lie? Is that specifically us in TI dollars, or is that like, hey, to lease the space, we need to have private bathrooms versus common bathrooms?
Right. Versus, and to that same point, they wanted a play area for the children during the day, and that's more TI dollars because it's specific for their use.
Right. Yeah. Almost any tenant is going to want a bathroom in their space.
Not everyone needs a play area.
They would prefer it in their space, right? Like ideally, you have your own private bathroom in your space, not a you leave your suite and go to a common area bathroom. That's very typical in office complexes. Is if you got a couple tenants on a floor and they have a shared common bathroom, it's always nicer if you had your own, right? So in the market right now, people are getting their own bathrooms to get people signed in a lease. That's part of what's happening. But yeah, the playground area is more. That's definitely TI dollars because they want something specific for their use. So that's one of the factors we're looking at when we try and underwrite a lease. We want to know what's that cost to total lease value. That's a big piece of how we're assessing it. We showed some pictures of that 5th floor of that office building, and the TI dollars there to the lease value are going to be through the roof, right? If we were estimating about 150 square feet, $150 a square foot, just like ballparks, maybe we're wrong. Maybe it's 175, maybe it's 125, but that percentage of that total lease value, you would need a lease that's 20 years long to make that really worthwhile. Right. But then at that point, you're paying 6% commission on a 20-year lease, which we're not doing 20-year leases. We're doing 5, maybe 10-year max because those costs get higher and higher. And the TI expectations for a longer and longer and longer lease to make that company commit to 20 years also get more significant. So it's kind of a circular reference. It keeps coming back the longer it goes.
It keeps compounding on top of itself.
Right. Yeah. So ideally for us, we get it under 10%. We can do a 5-year lease. That's our sweet spot for us. That's what we're looking at. Okay, last point we want to talk about. We looked at physical buildings today, but we have done a lot of debt deals as well. We've done 6 debt deals now so far this year in 2024, and it's a segment of our business that's growing. It's also one that there's a lot of interest in, and there's a lot of opportunity right now, given where the markets are at on the debt and bank lending sides. But those aren't really any different. We are a big proponent of you got to get out there and you got to go see them. You were driving through fields maybe a month ago. Steven on our team was down in Texas this past week and just looking at what the actual opportunities are and seeing it in person, because we think that's a game changer. We think you got to see stuff in person.
Yeah, it was hard to understand. We met with Dharma a couple of times. But it was really hard to understand the positioning of his land. This last property that we're working on with him in Hutto, it was hard to tell just by looking at Google Maps how it was situated, the access to it, and really the opportunity that was there. By physically going there, we got to tour the land. We saw how flat it was, how accessible it was, and he basically showed me like, hey, as part of this development, the city is building an off ramp for us. So like literally an exit to the highway will be entering his property, allowing better access for industrial, for multifamily and single family housing. So creating a ton of value there.
And you can see that stuff. The middle deal we looked at today, right? It had a shared entrance. Then you had to make like a weird turn to get around, like kind of get around it to get in, and then make a hard left turn. It's like you got this kind of convoluted entrance structure. And it might not look that bad when you just look at it on Google Maps.
Right.
You might be like, that's okay. But you go there, you drive that, and you make the turns in and out, you can really get a sense like, hey, does this work or not? So we're big proponents of going and seeing the deals in person. Every deal we buy, we're definitely going to be there and looking at it. Not one person. We'll probably have a handful of our team there in person just to confirm everything.
Right.
But yeah, the debt deals are very interesting. We're hoping we try and get one more by the end of the year. It's the goal. So yeah, we've done 6 of them. We think we'll get another one in by the end of the year. So excited about those. Cool. If there's any other cool deals that you want us to take a look at, we love looking at this.
Yeah, we'd be happy to drive them, check them out,
Yeah.
and give you our opinion.
The number of
for what it's worth.
Gosh, when we first started, we used to drive. We were driving all over the Southeast looking stuff. We had bocce balls in our car, and we were like, okay, we've been driving. We need a little bit of break. We can at least play some bocce ball at one of these places, and then pick up, get back in the car, and keep going. So
It was a lot safer than when we got into the realtor's car and they drove us around.
oh, that's a good one too. All right, thanks for watching. Hope that's helpful. A little bit of our drive-by segment, looking at how we underwrite deals. It's always something we're passionate about and want to talk more. If you got any questions, let us know. Thanks for watching.